so we are going to move to our next guest. Our next guest is the lovely Nick Puckett. Good morning, Nick. How are you doing?
I'm very well. How are you all there?
Not too bad.
We're
having a pretty fun morning.
Yeah.
I mean, I just got to look at sloths for 20 minutes, and I love that.
When you were giving me potential slots, you didn't say I was post-sloth, right? Come on. I'm like...
Yeah, you kind of have a lot to look at.
Everything.
Yeah, we're expecting a lot from the next 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's a rough one. I'm just talking about websites and stuff. That's not...
We love websites here.
We love websites. Websites are like the sloths of the internet.
That's literally what I was trying to rename things. I was going to quickly, like sloths. Yeah, but I've got stuff I'm going to show. I think.
Yeah. Oh. He's going away and coming back at some point, probably. But until that, we're just going to highlight what Thea said here. Steph's kits are incredible, and they are some of the most beautiful PCBs I've ever seen. There's some really incredible work with the different silk screens, and the different colors of PCB play really intensely into these really gorgeous kits. So you can see there's how can I?
It's very.
Oh, there's Nick. He's back.
Great. Cool.
Here's the thing. Computers are weird.
Yeah, I was like, I'm mad. You didn't tell me about the sloths. I'm out of here. So I just wanted to protest.
No.
Rage quit.
Okay. I'm gonna share a thing here and talk about stuff. Why not?
And as we talk about on the monthly live stream, sharing a screen is actually one of the hardest things ever invented. And there it is. Woo!
So, yeah, I think the prompt I got was talk about some of the stuff you've been up to lately. So I thought who am I? I'll give you a little bit of who am I, and also in the spirit of doing things as. Sorry, I'm trying to do it here. Websites are fun because you can just send people links. I'll put the link to this. Or actually, it's not letting me do it. I'll put it on our side and you can post it in the chat. So if you want to see it. So yeah, I'm Nick. I know, I've been at work in lots of different ways. So many people know me because I'm a professor in digital futures at OCAD. I also am a co-director there of the Social Body Lab with Kate Hartman and Adam Tyndale. And then I also have my own thing where I do stuff that fits more into this side of worlds of, part of my story is somebody who was supposed to be an architect, but who was smarter to do other things. So I tend to work a lot building weird stuff. Anytime people want to do weird things that they don't know how to do, I work with them and do that across a lot of different things. So the thing because I didn't have time to rename it sloths or websites are the sloths of the internet, I decided to think about some of the weird stuff I've been coming to of how different parts of open source intersect with teaching, and especially this teaching has gotten really weird in these past few years, if no one's noticed, and mostly because everything's gotten gigantic or all the rules have changed, this whole post-COVID thing. So I have been evolving myself over this. So I'm going to share a little bit of how I go back and forth between making weird stuff for weird problems in classes and how that also then becomes very public and it's all kind of open. I did think about it because I started showing students this because I hit all of this I just went to architecture school, right? But somewhere along the way, I also started learning about websites and finding the most interesting about this relationship between public spaces and public code. So I have managed on an old hard drive last month to find the first website I ever made, which was, of course, taking my kitchen in undergrad and making it so the cabinets open. And so this is when you start to think about how I think about what the internet is good for, this I think sums me up quite well of just understanding how to do these things and the fact that you can actually make anything. The first one I wanted to talk about though is for me, I got into this weird thing of teaching things like Arduino and everything over the past few years at OCAD. but you know, you hit this moment of like, we're all used to teaching this at a certain size of, but I went from doing it, you know, to like 20 people to having to like, how do you teach intro electronics to art students when there's 60 or 70 of them in the room? And so one of the things I got really interested in was like how to like lean on the sort of existing open source hardware things around Arduino and start building projects as Arduino libraries that get hosted through the actual Arduino stuff. So I don't, you know, if I don't have Arduino open here, so actually I'll do it. So I'll open it, but like you can see like, hey, what happens when you can start to just tell students of like Tiny Film Festival or like, sorry, DIGF. Yeah, so like all these sorts of things just start to exist where they can like new ways to think about how to push some new examples, and how can you use this stuff? Like how can you immediately get things into their hands and start to play around with it? So, you know, so much of teaching courses that I started to do, like everything becomes its own Arduino library because it got a little obsessive. But it became this interesting moment of, honestly, I got interested in this idea of like learning, and I probably should have known this before, that like all of this stuff, even to get it here, it's just like getting things into the right format, and it's just a big text file on a GitHub, which I probably should have known, but I didn't. But it sort of, I found it interesting, and it sort of led me to the next thing, which was over the summer, I got really interested in this idea of how such a weird ecosystem comes together all the time. And I started thinking about how, you know, how I like to search things. And even though like, okay, there's a version of this that exists on the Arduino website, I'm always really interested in like, how do we bring together many different ideas? So like, I'm like, how do you use the goodness of search, but also bring in some of the stuff of like why it's fun to walk around a regular library, or how do you think about, you know, essentially letting people in on the way my brain tries to think through searching for stuff, which, you know, you can do all the sort of standard things, but anytime, so you can click on one and just see like, hey, what are its neighbors, and kind of wander around and learn what's going on, because this is just the thing, just the Arduino library really struggled to whether call it the Arduino library or the Arduino library, but I learned a bit from that not to do it. And this is just, you know, it updates every night with something new, and it's kind of an interesting way. And again, back and forth with both, it's, you know, it's public to everyone, but this like teaching moment of how do you talk about it? And when you can't talk about it, my new default seems to be making websites about it, because I think like so many people during like all the COVID world, like I made a million videos and I now really don't enjoy it. So I'm trying to figure out like, what are the other mediums that can make people a bit more active? And so I've started making weird websites for everything. The other side of it is I have this rant about, if in courses, about like how programming is the same as prepositions. And I've made this rant forever. But over the summer, I finally started to work the other way, which is like, hey, why not just turn it into this new site, which is like thinking about like these basic notions of what does above mean, but also like you describe above, and how do you go from this like general notion of like, we all understand above, but we don't really understand how to program it. So it's this site that takes these ideas with these little examples of back and forth, or like, wait, what does toward look like? Well, it looks like this. And like all these tiny little snippets that let people explore stuff, you know, versus like thinking through like, hey, what does that actually look through in like P5 world? So again, like hooking into all this broader stuff. And again, you know, thinking about it where, you know, around, you know, where you can all describe around, but what does it mean to go around, that sort of thing. So, and all this is all still public. You know, you can get to all the things here, and even through that link, you can also, if you want to see how it's made, all that stuff is on there. So I think for me, that's one of the other sides of this is like, I'm really interested in this like back and forth of, I even say like, you know, working with students where they like become like my early beta testers for this stuff. So work with them, have people try it, and then kind of release it out into the broader public, which has been my sort of system all along with all these things. It's like, don't tell them that they're really just they're really just testers. So move the thing onto the circle, like these sort of things. It's really like simple stuff, but like when you hit the point where you're never able to actually talk to everybody in a class because there's so many of them, like how do you get your personality into things? And this has kind of been my method so far. The other really funny one is we've done this project forever, like Kate and I, and this is a grad project of dealing with like getting people to think about like these stupid things in like a fun way. Like how do you make these where these are actually fun and not just like random stuff that you take over our lives and aren't any and don't bring any joy to it. So like one of the things I'm working on at the moment, which also has come out of this project, which is about to become a regular P5 library through them, but it's missing the important part, which is my illustration that has to go on it. So I have to finish that part. But the I've gotten really, and this, everybody can play along with this part if you want. So actually, wait, don't look at that one. We're gonna look at a different one. So yeah, let's do this one. So I got really interested in this idea of trying to talk about like, hey, how do you think about like, so if you look at, let's do the, if you do the button one, so these QR codes should work from the screen too. So one way is it's just like, it's doing a lot of really boring stuff in the background, which is like, when you want to do weird things with a phone, like you have to just get it to turn all the stuff off. So like, this is kind of this new tool of looking through, but really what I'm interested in again is like, how do you start to make these public ideas of, you know, a button versus like shaking your phone around and how you can like teach that stuff that way. And, you know, for me, I'm much more interested in like making these things, putting them out there and like making, you know, give things to play through so you can start to think about it. And like, so like, hey, how is shaking like a button and how is it not? Or how is, you know, you can also be rolling around the room or that sort of thing. And starting to be a bit playful. Look at that one too. Sorry, these are all in. And even like, I'm really interested in, you know, how especially the web can make phones actually fun. And this is what I've spent a lot of time on, of like it in the same way of like getting some of the sort of like important but less interesting, like enabling, you know, stuff in the background to work better. You know, it lets you make fun things. So like if I look, this is one of the like a moment of like the one that's rolling. It's like, okay, you tap it, but it literally just like lets the thing play. It rolls down the screen as it would. So for me, a lot of what I'm interested in is all of these different tools and how do you actually go from like, instead of making all these fixed things, as soon as you know, kind of embracing the whole teaching this stuff, learning this stuff, you know, in class, out of class, and getting things to kind of live out in the wild and how they inform each other. And I don't know, that's my quick overview. Oh, I'll show you this one as well. So this was another one that came out of it, which is you can also get through it, which there's a ton of these sort of things that exist, especially if you're using like ESP32s, but you know, you can't just add a really simple GUI if you're using, because we're using just the Uno Wi-Fi's, and like, oh, you can't just add little GUI things to them simply. So it's again this idea of like making a library to help shape how you teach things. And yeah, I don't know, that's kind of what I've been up to. So I'm not sure.
Amazing.
Other questions, but yeah, this is where I'm at the moment. Like, if hey, what are you doing? This is what I'm doing.
Yeah, I mean, I saw all of these projects pop up like through various social feeds, and I really wanted you to share them because I've been thinking about a lot of the same kind of things. I really love that like website with all the programming concepts and like on top of, to the side, all these things. Because like, not only does it teach like people literally how to code them, but like also teaches people how to talk specifically about things,
Yeah.
which I feel like is really something students struggle with.
Yeah, and I think from my side, it's like, you know, one of the things for me, which has been interesting, is also like, it's helped me as well. If like, if I have to talk about it, if I can write it down, it's part of it along the way. So it's like, I can't, you know, I want them to learn about each one, but I'm not ever going to be able to have time to talk about all of them. And I think for me, it's also, you know, how do I let them know that like you can be a bit like silly,
Yeah.
like, you know, and I think that's why like even like all like when you're making like, you know, libraries in Arduino, like the fact that they all have slightly ridiculous names, it's also like, yeah, this stuff isn't scary, right? Because I feel like when you teach this, yeah, right, like it's like when you teach this stuff, it's like, you know, it's totally fine. It's not like going to be this big crazy thing. So
yeah, I like it too, because sometimes I get like a question from students where they're like, what, like, you know, you're like, these are if statements, and they're like, where would I use this? I'm like, I don't know, all kinds of silly things. And it's like really good to have some examples of what those things could be like and how to think about them. So yeah, thanks so much for sharing.
yeah, no, that was it. Like, that's a quick overview. If people, I do my, at the moment, yeah, the stuff from like all the phone things, and like the like new P5 thing is coming out next week. After I tested it on the students, right? Like, so it's like, hey, try it out. And like, it's interesting because like, you know, I've now got a room of 50 people where I can be like, hey, does this work? And 50 people try it, which is also a kind of different sort of,
totally
spirit of it, right? And I think like my favorite thing really has become, you know, it's tricky because it's like, hey, you should totally know how to enable permissions, but it's also like, you're not going to figure that out. and so I have gotten really on this crusade of like, especially, you know, these are like 19-year-olds, and it's like, how do you get them to see their devices as something to like mess around with? Because like for them it's like totally off limits, right? Like it's just like, I has feeds, scroll through it, and like how, you know, and like, so I'm trying to get to like their core of like, no, this can just be a thing that you do creative stuff on along the way. So that's my latest experiment, I have to say.
That's awesome. And we will share all of those links. We'll share them on our socials and get them out to people. And maybe we can get even more people testing them out, and maybe some other people testing them in like teaching spaces. So
yeah, and that's why I'm there. You know, that's why they're all in all this stuff. Like, you know, not even like there's the sites, but all the materials, it's all just on different GitHub things. If you want them, great. If you want to change it, great. Like that's, this is all hard, man. Like this is the other thing of like, teaching this stuff is hard. And I think
true.
happy to, however I can contribute to anybody, making anybody else's a little easier, happy to do it.
Amazing. Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time, and thanks for sharing. And we will get your links out there. And yeah, looking forward to seeing other weird stuff that develops in the future. Thanks so much, Nick.
Yeah, thanks.